The Sigma male, an enigma that puzzles society and threatens established hierarchies without even trying. Today we're diving deep into why these independent lone wolves strike fear into the hearts of both alphas and betas alike. If you've ever wondered why your quiet confidence makes others uncomfortable, this video will reveal all the hidden dynamics at play. Before we begin this journey together, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Why? Because understanding Sigma psychology isn't just fascinating, it's liberating. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the hard truths that others are afraid to share. And your support allows us to continue bringing this valuable knowledge directly to you. Now let's uncover the reasons why Sigma males terrify the social order. Strategic solitude. The first reason Sigma males terrify others is their strategic embrace of solitude. Unlike the desperate need for social affirmation that plagues most, Sigmas cultivate their isolation as a source of strength. This isn't mere introversion, it's a deliberate choice that confounds society's expectations. Most people cannot comprehend voluntary isolation. They interpret it through their own lens of fear. What's wrong with him? They don't understand that while they're drowning in shallow social interactions, the Sigma is building depth through self-reflection and purpose-driven isolation. The anxiety this creates in others is palpable. They witness someone who doesn't fear the very thing that terrifies them, being alone. This independence from the social ecosystem represents a threat because it demonstrates an alternative way of existing that challenges their fundamental belief that social acceptance equals success. Consider the reactions when a Sigma declines invitations without excuse or apology. The confusion this generates often transforms into resentment. Who does he think he is? They misinterpret self-sufficiency as arrogance because they cannot imagine prioritizing personal growth over social obligation. Meanwhile, the Sigma male uses this solitude strategically to recover energy, pursue personal projects, and maintain mental clarity. This calculated approach to social engagement allows them to enter interactions from a position of strength, rather than need, which subtly shifts the power dynamic in any room they enter. And two, the silent power dynamic. The second reason Sigmas create fear is through their mastery of silent power dynamics. While alpha males announce their presence with dominant behaviors and betas signal submission through approval seeking, the Sigma exerts influence without obvious power plays. This silent strength manifests through minimal participation in social games. When a Sigma enters a room, they don't compete for attention or validation. This absence of typical male posturing creates an information vacuum that others find deeply unsettling. Humans instinctively categorize others to understand their place in the hierarchy, but Sigmas defy easy classification. The power of observation is the Sigma's greatest weapon. While others perform, the Sigma watches, learning vulnerabilities and dynamics that remain invisible to those caught in the social performance. This creates an asymmetric information advantage that others subconsciously detect but cannot name. I've witnessed this countless times. A group of men engaging in one-upmanship, getting progressively louder and more demonstrative, while the Sigma remains composed, speaking only when necessary and with measured precision. When he finally offers an insight, the room falls silent. This isn't coincidence. The silence represents unconscious respect for authentic rather than performed power. The most terrifying aspect of this dynamic is its effortlessness. The Sigma isn't employing manipulative tactics. They simply operate from a different paradigm, where validation-seeking behaviors appear as transparent as they actually are. This natural authenticity exposes the performative nature of typical social interactions, making others uncomfortable with their own behavior. Emotional self-sufficiency. The third reason Sigma males intimidate others is their remarkable emotional self-sufficiency. In a world where emotional dependency is normalized, the emotionally self-contained Sigma appears almost superhuman or inhuman, depending on who's observing. This isn't about suppressing emotions or toxic stoicism. Rather, Sigmas have developed internal emotional processing systems that don't require external validation. They experience the full spectrum of human emotion, but don't outsource the management of these feelings to others. Most people operate in emotional symbiosis. They need others to lift them when down, celebrate with them when up, and validate their emotional responses continuously. The Sigma's ability to process grief, disappointment, or even joy independently appears as emotional detachment to these codependent observers. This self-sufficiency creates fear through several mechanisms. First, it removes a primary control mechanism used in relationships: emotional manipulation. When someone doesn't need your approval to feel valid or your consolation to recover from setbacks, traditional relationship leverage disappears. Second, it holds a mirror to others' emotional dependency. The Sigma's emotional autonomy highlights how much energy others invest in seeking external emotional support, creating uncomfortable self-awareness. Third, this emotional independence enables clearer decision-making. Unbound by the need for emotional consensus, Sigmas make choices based on principles and logic rather than emotional comfort or social approval. This rational approach appears cold to those who prioritize feelings over facts, but produces superior results that others both envy and fear. 4. The unpredictable nature. The fourth reason Sigmas generate fear is their inherent unpredictability. Human brains are pattern recognition machines constantly working to predict others' behaviors. The Sigma male defies easy pattern recognition, creating cognitive dissonance and anxiety in observers. This unpredictability stems from the Sigma's independence from social scripts. Most people follow predictable social patterns. They respond to status signals in standard ways, conform to group expectations, and align their behaviors with social rewards. The Sigma operates from internal rather than external cues, making their next move difficult to anticipate. Consider how people react when a Sigma doesn't respond to typical social triggers. A status challenge goes unacknowledged, a social opportunity is declined without explanation, or conventional success markers are disregarded in favor of personally meaningful goals. These responses short-circuit social prediction mechanisms. The Sigma's decision-making algorithm remains opaque to observers because it incorporates variables others don't track or prioritize. While most evaluate choices through the lens of social advancement, Sigmas assess decisions based on personal principles, long-term vision, and individual values, creating bewildering choices from an external perspective. This unpredictability extends to the Sigma's social presence. They might deeply engage in conversation one moment, then withdraw completely. They might demonstrate exceptional skill in an area, then show zero interest in leveraging it for status. This inconsistency from a social perspective, though perfectly consistent with internal priorities, makes others uneasy. The fear response is instinctual. Unpredictable elements in our environment represent potential threats. The Sigma's behavioral independence triggers primitive risk assessment mechanisms, generating unease even when no actual threat exists. The 5. Freedom from social validation. The fifth reason Sigmas terrify others is their liberation from the need for social validation, perhaps their most subversive quality in a validation-obsessed culture. This freedom manifests as indifference to both criticism and praise. While most people orient their lives around maximizing social approval and minimizing disapproval, Sigmas evaluate feedback solely on its merit rather than its source or social implications. This selective response to feedback appears as arrogance to those who cannot imagine disregarding social judgment. The Sigma's immunity to social pressure dismantles a fundamental control mechanism. Society functions largely through implicit threats of exclusion and promises of acceptance. When someone exists outside this reward and punishment structure, they become ungovernable by conventional means. This independence reveals an uncomfortable truth. Most people's values, goals, and self-concept are externally determined. They believe what they're told to believe, pursue what they're expected to pursue, and define success by consensus metrics. The Sigma's self-authorship highlights the unexamined nature of most lives. I've observed the discomfort this creates in corporate environments, where Sigmas evaluate opportunities based on personal growth and meaning rather than prestige or advancement. Colleagues interpret this priority inversion as either naivety or veiled superiority, unable to process someone voluntarily stepping outside the status competition. The most disturbing aspect of this validation independence is that it's contagious. When others witness someone functioning perfectly well without the approval they desperately seek, it raises the possibility of their own liberation. A simultaneously attractive and terrifying prospect that creates ambivalence toward the Sigma. 6. Calculated decision-making. The sixth reason Sigma males create fear is their calculated, independent decision-making process. While most people outsource their critical choices to consensus, Sigmas maintain sovereign thinking that produces decisions others find both unpredictable and intimidating. This calculation manifests as a noticeable pause before responding where others would react immediately. Where social pressure demands quick alignment, the Sigma takes time to process information through their own values framework. This deliberation appears as hesitation to those accustomed to automatic social compliance. Sigmas evaluate options through a different algorithm. While others prioritize short-term social harmony, Sigma decision-making weighs long-term consequences, alignment with personal values, and strategic advantage. This produces choices that appear unnecessarily complicated or contrarian, but prove prescient over time. The power dynamic this creates is subtle, but profound. In any negotiation, the person with the most patience and least need for agreement holds leverage. The Sigma's willingness to accept short-term social friction for long-term benefit shifts empower in their favor, creating anxiety in those who prioritize immediate consensus. Consider how this manifests in group decisions. When a team rushes toward an easy but flawed solution, the Sigma's willingness to suggest a more difficult but superior alternative creates tension. Their immunity to groupthink positions them as either a valuable corrective or an obstinate obstacle, depending on the group's security. This calculated approach extends beyond major decisions to everyday interactions. Sigmas allocate their time, attention, and energy based on return on investment rather than social obligation. This resource optimization appears cold to those who distribute these resources based on social pressure, but enables the focus that drives Sigma achievement. 7. The intimidating authenticity. The seventh reason Sigmas generate fear is their uncompromising authenticity, perhaps their most admirable yet threatening quality in a world built on social performance. This authenticity manifests as congruence between the Sigma's internal values and external behavior. While most people maintain various personas for different social contexts, Sigmas present a consistent self regardless of audience. This congruence appears either as refreshing integrity or alarming inflexibility, depending on the observer's relationship with their own authenticity. The Sigma's authentic self-expression ignores unwritten social rules about appropriate self-disclosure, emotional regulation, and opinion expression. They'll voice unpopular perspectives not from contrarian impulse, but because these views genuinely reflect their thinking. This disregard for social script creates both admiration and resentment. Most threatening is how this authenticity exposes others' inauthenticity. In contrast to the Sigma's congruent presentation, the social masks and performance aspects of others become more visible. This creates a mirror effect where the Sigma unintentionally highlights others' disconnection from their authentic selves. I've witnessed how disruptive authentic presence can be in environments built on performance. Professional settings, social gatherings, and even intimate relationships often operate on unacknowledged pretense. The Sigma's refusal to participate in these pretenses doesn't just violate social contract, it questions its very validity. The fear this generates isn't just about social judgment, but identity threat. If someone can function successfully without the exhausting performance others maintain, it raises the possibility that this performance isn't necessary. This realization threatens not just behavior, but self-concept, creating existential rather than merely social anxiety. Resistance to manipulation. The eighth reason Sigma males terrify others is their remarkable resistance to manipulation tactics that work reliably on most people. This immunity to psychological influence techniques removes key leverage points others depend on for social control. This resistance begins with awareness. Sigmas recognize common manipulation strategies, guilt induction, social pressure, validation, offering artificial scarcity or status anxiety that influence most people unconsciously. This recognition neutralizes these tactics before they can take effect. More importantly, Sigmas remain unmoved by the emotional triggers that make manipulation effective. The fear of disapproval, desire for inclusion, need for validation, and avoidance of conflict that render others vulnerable hold minimal power over the self-contained Sigma. Consider how this manifests in sales interactions. Techniques designed to create FOMO, fear of missing out, social proof anxiety, or status insecurity simply bounce off the Sigma's solid sense of self and values. This creates frustration in those accustomed to these techniques working reliably. In personal relationships, this resistance appears as emotional independence that renders traditional control mechanisms ineffective. Passive aggression, approval withdrawal, or emotional volatility that would influence others' behavior produce no compliance from the Sigma, who responds to the manipulation itself rather than the emotional payload it carries. Most disturbing to potential manipulators is the Sigma's willingness to accept relational damage rather than submit to manipulation. While most people will eventually comply with manipulative tactics to preserve relationships, Sigmas accept disconnection as a preferable alternative to compromised authenticity. This creates fear in those who rely on emotional leverage for control. The realization that someone cannot be influenced through the usual channels represents a loss of power that threatens relationship dynamics built on subtle manipulation rather than mutual respect. 9. The lone wolf paradox. The final reason Sigma males create fear is the lone wolf paradox they embody. The contradictory ability to remain fundamentally independent while still participating effectively in social systems when they choose. This paradox manifests as selective engagement. Unlike pure loners who withdraw completely from society, Sigmas move in and out of social contexts with ease, engaging deeply when aligned with their purpose and disconnecting completely when it's not. This selective participation creates confusion about where exactly they stand in relation to the group. The Sigma demonstrates that independence and interconnection aren't mutually exclusive. They maintain their sovereign identity within relationships rather than deriving identity from them. This balanced interdependence challenges the false dichotomy between isolated individualism and codependent connection that most people accept. Most threatening is how this balanced approach yields benefits without the associated costs. The Sigma accesses social resources, opportunities, and connections while avoiding the energy drain of constant performance, the limitation of groupthink, and the burden of emotional management that others accept as inevitable relationship taxes. I've observed how this creates particular anxiety in organizational hierarchies. The Sigma, who contributes value without emotional investment in status games or political alignments, represents an uncontrollable variable. They can't be reliably influenced through promotion promises, status anxiety, or tribal inclusion, the standard motivational levers in most organizations. The fear this generates is existential rather than personal. The Sigma's effective independence demonstrates an alternative relationship with society that most haven't considered possible. If someone can engage with social systems without being captured by them, perhaps the compromise of authenticity for acceptance isn't the necessary sacrifice most believe it to be. The Sigma male represents an evolutionary adaptation to modern society, maintaining independence within interconnection, authenticity within social systems, and strength within solitude. This balanced approach terrifies precisely because it exposes the unnecessary compromises most people make without question. Understanding these dynamics isn't about creating fear, but gaining clarity about the reactions you might encounter as a Sigma, or the discomfort you feel in the presence of one. This awareness transforms confusion into comprehension and conflict into clarity. If this deep dive into Sigma psychology resonated with you, hit that subscribe button now. Our channel explores the hidden truths behind human behavior that others are afraid to discuss. By subscribing, you're not just supporting independent content, you're joining a community of free thinkers dedicated to authentic living in an increasingly conformist world. Remember, being feared isn't the Sigma's goal. It's merely a side effect of living with integrity in a world built on compromise. The path of the Sigma isn't for everyone, but understanding it benefits all who seek authentic power in their lives.